Welcome! I'm so glad you're here. I'm Gila Ross, author of Living Beautifully and host of the Confident Parent podcast, the podcast you need to listen to bring more joy, more ease, and more intention so that you can be the parent you want to be for your kids.
How do we set boundaries? How do we follow through on boundaries? It's probably one of the hardest parenting questions, right? And it's definitely one that I get asked a lot. Like, we want to give our kids love. And when, if you think back to before you had kids, right? All you think about is like, I'm going to have this child. I'm just going to love that child, right? And then the reality is that I see a few smiles, right? The reality is, yes, we want to love them. We've also got to give them that discipline. So besides for anything else, they grow up to be lovable people. Now, because I think it's such a big topic, I think what we're going to do is, and it's such an important foundation for our homes and the way we parent our kids, we're going to spend the next few sessions laying the groundwork, which I think is going to make everything else that much easier. Let me ask you a question. What's the best toy that you can give your kid? The toy that your kid is going to play with for years and years and years, again and again and again?
The one that I can play with them.
Close.
Time. Yourself.
Close. It was that, Becca, was yourself. If you think about it, we are our kids' best toys, right? I remember when my oldest was a baby, and like any first-time parent, I had all these toys, and all my kid wanted to do was play with me. And I remember at the time he was taking physio for a problem he had with his neck, and I said to the physio, I was like, I've got all these toys, but all he does is he wants to play with me. And she says, he's your best toy. And it stuck with me. And the truth is, even as our kids get older, we are the best thing for them. And some kids more than others, they thrive on our energy, right? Now think about your day. If you think about the day that you have, imagine you're telling your kids, your kid is getting dressed in the morning. How much energy on general do we give when our kid gets dressed nicely? We give them a bit of energy, hopefully. Depends on what stage of life it is. If it's a new thing for them, we'll give them a bit of energy. We might say thank you. Now imagine you're rushing to get out the door, and your kid says, oh, I only have one shoe. Boom. That's when your kid gets energy, right? Now, what we have to understand about this is that for us, that feels negative. But for a child, that's an energy. And for them, they don't see, it's almost as though they don't see the negative sign in front of it. It's almost like energy is currency for them. And, so when you give them a small bit of energy, whether it's positive or negative, it's like you give them £1. But when you give them a bit of energy, you're giving them £100, right? Now, when we give them a big bit of energy for something negative, they don't necessarily see the negative sign beforehand. So sometimes for a lot of children, they thrive on that energy. Now, what we want to do as parents is if we think about it, human nature is we give a little bit of energy for the things that are going right, the general things, and we give a lot of energy, especially, when we're frustrated or we're running out of time, or if a kid pushes on our buttons, we do give a big chunk of energy for negative. So what we want to try and do is shift those patterns of energy, right? And we want to try and give our energy to our kids so that we energize their successes, and we want to try and limit their energies so that for negative things. Now, in case you're thinking, oh my gosh, that sounds insane, that sounds undoable, don't worry, okay? Because we're gonna explain I want you to have patience. I don't want you to try and change anything drastic over the next few weeks, because it's gonna be a process that we're gonna go through, and it's gonna be easy and doable. But I want to give you an analogy that I think is gonna show it. Raise your hand if you have a kid that kind of likes video games. Oh, none of your kids.
I'll have to put mine up then.
Amy's hand is like going like crazy. Come on, our kids love video games. what happens in video games? 3 things, okay? And this is what we're going to try and recreate in our parenting. When the kid is doing good things, they keep getting energy, right? At points they keep getting stuff, right? Whenever they're doing small things. There's absolute clarity, right? There's no wiggle room. If a kid messes up in a video game, there's no negotiating and saying to the video game, oh, come on, give me a second chance. But what does happen is there's an immediate consequence, and then they go back into the patterns of success. So that's what we're going to try and recreate in our parenting. Now, obviously, we're human, and so the more we do it, the better it's going to be. But there's 3 stands that we are taking as parents. Now, the first stand is that we are absolutely no. We are not going to energize. We're not going to give energy for negative behaviors. We're not going to get drawn into a pattern of negative behavior. I'm just going to introduce it because we're going to talk about it later. So just so that you know about it, but don't worry about it for now. The second stand is absolutely yes. And that is, we are going to give energy to success. We're going to create a flow of success. We're going to give energize our children's success. And the third one is we're going to have absolute clarity around the boundaries. Now, stand number 1 and number 3, we're going to get to later. We're going to start with stand number 2, because that's going to lay the foundation in order for us to do the other ones. So what do I mean by this? Now, again, I'm just going to repeat this again because it's a process, and it's going to work over the next few weeks, and it's going to be easy to implement. So don't worry about changing anything drastic. We're going to do one small step today, and that's all you're going to focus on for the next week. Remember back to when your child was learning to walk. Anyone can remember those days? That phase when the kid learns to walk, right? Anyone wants to describe what happens when your child starts learning to walk? You know, your child is, let's say, I don't know, a year, they're standing, holding on, they're cruising around, holding on, and they let go for one moment. What's our reaction as a parent?
Excitement.
Encouragement.
Oh, excitement, yeah.
Excitement, encouragement, we clap. You know, think back to when your child is learning to walk, right? So they let go, and you go, oh my gosh, and you clap and you squeal, and it's so exciting, and the child doesn't really know what they've done, but you bet they know they've done something right? Now, what happens when they fall down? Do we turn around to them and say, oh, come on, you were doing so well, why'd you give up? Do we do that?
No.
Why not? Because we have no expectations, right? We know this is a process. The kid is going to get it, and there's no expectations that they keep going. All they see from us is a flow of success. When they fall, big deal. We probably don't comment. We may pick them up. We may just let it go. But there's this thrill and this excitement. So that's what we are going to try and recreate. The challenge, though, is for a lot of us, our kids are no longer 1 and just cuteness and just learning to walk, right? Some of them, you know, and life is not the same as when you're just sitting there with a baby that's learning to walk, right? We're rushed, we're hurried. Our kids are sometimes mouthy and sassy and who knows what else, right? So how are we going to create this? So let me tell you a story that's going to help us, and then I'm gonna share with you the thing that we're going to try and do this week together. So you know how you have like toll booths, let's say when you drive down the M6, right? And there are, I don't know if they have people in, do they still have people in the toll booths when you drive down the M6 and you have to pay the toll? Yes, they do actually, because you have the automatic lanes, but they also have the lanes with actual people inside them. So the story goes like this, that there was a person that was driving down the motorway, and he walks past he drives past the toll booth, and he stops, and he sees that the guy inside the toll booth is kind of like having a party. His music is blaring, he's dancing. He says, what's going on? And he says, listen, I am a singer in training. Every single day I get here and they pay me to practice my dance moves and my songs, and it's fantastic. And the guy looks at him and says, really? What about the other guys in the other toll booths? Because if you look at the other guys in the other toll booths, they're sitting there like this, you know, giving you the money, right? He says, those guys, they're just sitting in their walking coffins. They come in at 9 o'clock in the morning and they just sit there dead for the next 8 hours until it's time for them to go home. It's a fascinating story. It's a fabulous story, but it also shows us that everything depends on our attitude, and depending on, no matter where your kids are, right? No matter how difficult your kid is, there's always something we can find that is positive about that child, right? And even celebrating partial successes is worthwhile, right? Like, it doesn't have to be, you know, everything, right? Even if a kid tries and then fails, that's also something worth celebrating. So how are we going to do this? Because as I told you, it's going to be easy and doable, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to call these Kodak moments. What is a Kodak moment? Is basically a moment where you're just recognizing your child. Let's say you're walking past, your kid is sitting on the couch reading a book. You take 30 seconds. You may or may not sit down next to your child and say, I see you're reading a book. That looks really interesting. You're not giving any comment about what the child, you're not giving any judgment about what the child is doing. It's completely neutral. All you're doing is describing what you are seeing. But what your child is hearing is that, firstly, they're getting energy from you, and they're getting energy from you, not for doing anything good or bad, but just for being. And your child now knows that you are seeing them. And what we want to do is we want to give our child multiple Kodak moments a day. Now, if you have to set a reminder on your phone every hour to do it, whatever it takes, whatever cues you want to do to remind yourself to do it, just to get into the habit. As I said, this is just the first step. We're gonna go into future steps, in further steps in future weeks. But we're just laying the foundation for stand number 2, which is absolutely yes, I am going to energize the positive so that I'm going to create a flow of success for my child. And so the first way we're going to do it is just by, we're going to call them those Kodak moments with active recognition. You find something your child is doing, they're coloring, you say, oh, I see you're coloring a picture of a car. You're using the yellow and the green colors, right? You could even say to them, it looks like you're enjoying that. And then that's it, right? And depending on where your child is and how things are going up to now, they may resist, they may love it, they may resist, they may act up. Don't get drawn into anything further. Just use the active recognition of the Kodak moment. Try and do it multiple times a day. That's it. That's our task and your homework for the week. Basically, what we're doing is we're creating that environment of love and success and active and recognition for the child, so that we can then easily put the boundaries in place and enforce them without damaging that relationship.
How would you give a positive comment when they're sat on the computer practically the whole day?
Okay, so that is a brilliant question, and it doesn't have to be positive. It could just be simple as, I see you're enjoying that game, or whatever, right? It doesn't, you don't have to, you're just showing your child that you are going to recognize them unrelated to negative things, and because sometimes a child falls into a pattern where they feel like to get recognition, they either have to do something brilliant or they have to act up, right? So what we're trying to shift here is a pattern where the child feels that sense of being seen at any time of the day. Does that sound doable?
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your questions for future episodes. And please take a moment, think about someone else who might benefit from this and forward it on to them. If you enjoyed this podcast, you'll love my book, Living Beautifully, for more insights on how to bring meaning, joy, love into your life based on timeless Jewish wisdom. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out.